And now Mr. Bob Parrish will come forth to talk about how our freedom isn't free.
I certainly appreciate the invitation. Some of you I had in middle school, and you've turned out pretty well. I appreciate that. It's good. Glad to have Dwayne here. He's Key Club, and I'm Kiwanian, and we sponsor the Key Club here, so very proud of what they are doing. Is Jim Rayburn here?
He's at a conference.
Oh, well.
But he did plan all this.
He didn't have to show up. Okay.
We wanted him here.
Not because of me, I hope. Okay. Some of what I'm going to say now is on the back of your program, so you'll just get a little double dose, and you can read that if you get bored as I talk. And I told someone I've got a funeral at 1 o'clock, so I'm going to try to get you folks out of here so I can get to the funeral. So just hang in there. The Exchange Club Freedom Shrines are absolutely wonderful. I started teaching 50 years ago. I was only 7 years old at the time, but I wish I'd had it then, because it is a marvelous teaching tool. And it takes skill to cursive writing and reading ability to be able to read a lot of it, but they're old and written in extremely poor hand, some of them anyway. But the Freedom Shrine is sponsored by the Exchange Club. It's an impressive, permanently mounted collection of the most important and historic American documents, including the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, the Gettysburg Address, among others. They serve as windows to the world of America's proud past. They show our nation's youth, the strength, and the courage of our forefathers by allowing them to read with their own eyes, sometimes difficultly, the immortal words of inspired Americans who decisively changed the course of history. And upfront cost of these plaques, I've found on the internet, is between $600 and $900. So they're quite an investment, and the numbers that have been put out makes it an even bigger investment. The Freedom Shrine originated with the Freedom Train in 1947. The Documents of Liberty gave Americans the opportunity to reflect on the meaning of American citizenship. They exemplify the beginnings of our nation and subsequent turning points in the history of the United States. And many, many famous names in American history are immortalized in these words that you see on the wall here, the Freedom Shrine. And just a few of them. The first one, and a very important one, and is the foundation for our American government, is the Mayflower Compact. It was signed on the 11th day of November, 1620, 395 years ago. There were 41 male passengers who signed, because, you know, women, they were nothing. So the men signed, not the women. And it was a social contract, and it was the first governing document of the Plymouth colony, and therefore of the what became the United States of America. The Declaration of Independence is down on the end, and this, I love this Declaration of Independence. My wife and I are extremely proud and honored to have 3 ancestors who signed the Declaration. And that just thrills me no end. The first column is devoted to Georgia. Lyman Hall, George Walton, and Button Gwinnett signed it. In column 2, my ancestor John Penn, who was born in Caroline County, Virginia, studied law under another ancestor of mine, Edmund Pendleton, and then married into my mother's family, Taylors, and moved to Granville County, North Carolina, where he was an attorney and where he was a member of the First and Second Continental Congresses. He's in, as I said, column 2, I think I did. And my wife, Janann, has Dr. Benjamin Rush from Pennsylvania in column number 4. And column 5, John Hart, who moved from Pennsylvania over to New Jersey and was in the New Jersey colony when he signed the Declaration. So that means a lot to me. And one very important document is the next one in the chronological list, and it's Washington's letter to Colonel Nicola, or Nicolai. I don't know how to pronounce that, never have, even haven't taught history. But Colonel Nicolai thought George ought to take the title king. and it's interesting to read. He says, "No way, Jose, I'm not going to do that." And that laid the foundation for common people to rule us, not a monarchy, a hierarchy of kings and princes and so on. Many more of the things, the Bill of Rights, Washington's Farewell, Jefferson's First Inaugural, the Star-Spangled Banner, which, by the way, was a British tune. Francis Scott Key wrote the words only to a British tune, but we'll accept that. The Monroe Doctrine, the Emancipation Proclamation, even Lee's letter when he accepted the presidency of Washington College in Lexington, Virginia, which is now Washington and Lee University. Theodore Roosevelt's letter on Cuba, when he said we don't want to take over Cuba, which we probably should have done. Last year, Jeanette and I went on a cultural exchange to Cuba and spent 2 weeks and went 780 miles from one end of the island to the other. And we stood on San Juan Hill, which was just a little higher in places than this floor. Not really much of a hill, but it was very interesting. And some of the most amazing documents to me is one of them is General McAuliffe's Christmas message in 1944. And that's the famous nuts letter. And as I said, if I had had this when I started teaching 50 years ago in DeKalb County, Georgia, up in the Atlanta area, I would have had students, they would know all about this, because this is easy. Hey, you take this one, you take that one, and we'll go with it. But General McAuliffe, his Christmas message, when everything looked so bleak in the Bastogne area, the Battle of the Bulge, and he put out his Christmas message, and then the German commander sent a message that you might as well hang it up. It's so bad, and so we want your surrender. And General McAuliffe wrote him back, nuts. And I've seen a movie or two, you may have to, I can't remember the name now, when the Germans are trying to translate nuts into German. You know, what does that mean? What does that mean? The German instrument of surrender and the Japanese instrument of surrender are both up here on the wall. FDR's 4 freedoms, which are very important. In 1941, when we were in the beginning days of World War II, the 4 freedoms that he spoke about, the freedom of speech and expression, the freedom of worship, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. And JFK, of course, asked not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Very important documents. All of them have to do with our country's history, and also they all show, to me, the importance of our military. And our military is subjected to the commander-in-chief, who is a non-military person, and that's important, and I think, in our day and time. But today is Veterans Day, and Veterans Day means a lot to most of us, and should mean a lot to all Americans. But I have a anonymous reading, and it tells the importance of our veterans. It's the veteran, not the preacher, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the veteran, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the veteran, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It is the veteran, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to assemble. It is the veteran, not the lawyer, who has given us the freedom of a fair trial. It is the veteran, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the veteran who salutes the flag. It is the veteran who serves under the flag to be buried under the flag. It is the veteran with faith in God who has given us all our freedoms. And last night there was a wonderful program on public television on the gathering of the Iwo Jima veterans, the Japanese and the Americans. And somebody said, I think Lieutenant General, one of the guys, can't remember his name now, he said, freedom was not given to us by God, we had to earn it. And our veterans have earned the freedom. I would like to pass out, not really, I'm not going to pass out. If you would take these and pass them out as far as they go. This is called the American's Creed. It is 100 words written by William Tyler Page of Frederick, Maryland, who lived from 1868 to 1942. He was a descendant of Carter Braxton, who is a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And Carter served in the Virginia legislature for 25 years, there again with Edmund Pendleton, one of my ancestors. And William Tyler Page's American Creed has become useful today. The DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, start every meeting with the recitation of the American's Creed. The colonial names 17th century starts every meeting with the recitation of this America's Creed. And it's based sort of, if you're a Methodist or some other denomination that recites the Apostles' Creed, it's sort of based on that type of blueprint. But in 1917, there was a patriotic contest at the beginning of World War I, and William Tyler Page, the Maryland writer, won with this American's Creed, and he won $1,000, which was a good bit of money in 1917. He drew on the Declaration of Independence, the preamble, the Gettysburg Address, a speech by Senator Daniel Webster, Edward Everett Hale's short story in 1863 that I hope some of you have read, The Man Without a Country, which was about an officer condemned to exile, Army Lieutenant Philip Nolan. He was condemned to a life at sea, never to get off the ship, and with no news told him of the United States. And he was an accomplice of Aaron Burr. The Creed comprises part of the naturalization ceremony for new American citizens, and it is a statement of America's political faith, or Americans' political faith. And I would like you to recite this, read this with me now, the American's Creed, as we read together. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity, for which American patriots sacrifice their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect the flag, and to defend it against all enemies. Thank you. John Peterson was a very prolific religious song and cantata writer. He died in 2006. He wrote over 1,000 songs and 35 cantatas or musicals. And if you've been in church choir programs several years ago anyway, you probably did some of his works at Easter or Christmas. And one of his best works, as far as I'm concerned, he wrote and came out in 1976, which was the bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence, the 200th anniversary. And one of the songs in there, if I sang for you, it would be Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment novel. I'm a musician, but I'm not a soloist, so I'm going to spare you the ordeal of singing. But there's a chorus in this musical. I'm just a flag-waving American, a citizen I'm really proud to be. I'm just a flag-waving American, a liberty-loving, red, white, and blue variety. I love to sing the battle hymn and Yankee Doodle. I thrill to see Old Glory flying high. Oh, I'm just a flag-waving American who believes there's no better land beneath the sky, who believes there's no better land beneath the sky. Ronald Reagan said, as our 40th president, and I leave you with this: freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in their bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. Thank you, and God bless America.
I first realized what it meant to sacrifice for freedom when I was called out of my classroom as a fifth grader in 1966. And I didn't know why I was being called out of to the office for. But as I arrived there, the principal asked me if I had a brother by the name of Kenneth Pickett. I told him yes. And found out that he had just given his life for this country in Vietnam. So I want to thank you for being here to remember and honor the brave men and women who have fought to protect the freedoms we hold dear. Mr. William Faulkner once wrote, "We must be free not because we claim freedom, but because we practice it." For all those brave individuals, we dedicate this monument to them and their honored sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate you being here and all that you've done for our country. Documents on this wall aren't just pieces of paper. They mark great turning points of our nation, and having them here in our school, available for all students and citizens to see firsthand, connects our past and our present, guaranteeing our strong future. We continue to study these documents in history classes, our literature classes, our law and debate classes. We include cursive in our instruction so each generation may read the writings of our founders. Our advanced placement students need only travel to the next building to see actual documents that shaped our history. That is why this wall is important. Thank you to the Exchange Club. Thank you to the members of our military. Thank you, history teachers, and God bless America.